the Indian subcontinent. I welcome you, Mr. Sanjit, to this session and really look forward to understand more about your work, about the work that you have been doing in blockchain, and about how what suggestions would you like to give to our participants of TDeFi Bizthon. Uh, yeah. So before I begin with the introduction of our esteemed panelists, I'll quickly give an introduction about TDeFi Bizthon. What is it? What we're planning to, what we aim to do, and how did it all came together? So TDeFi is an acceleration program that is run for early stage blockchain startups. We have been in the ecosystem for almost last 7 years now, and as investors of early stage blockchain projects and tech startups. Then from last 2020, the year 2020, we started building TDeFi, which was primarily started for DeFi and NFT. But then as we progress, so we started incubating blockchain startups, irrespective of whether they are only from the financial industry or not. Now, with the intent of encouraging and bringing more ideas to reality, TDeFi is hosting a business hackathon, which goes by the name Bizthon, in collaboration with Future Blockchain Summit, which will be hosted by at GITEX, which is the largest technology exhibition that happens in Dubai from the last 26 years. There are 3 rounds to this. There is the idea submission round, then the second is MVP submission, which is a minimum viable product or a prototype, and the third is the final presentation that will be happening at GITEX. There are so many hackathons going on around. If you look around, you will see, okay, this chain is organizing this hackathon, so many hackathons, but we never wanted to be one of them. Our aim was very simple. We do not want a piece of code as a result of a hackathon. What we want is to see an idea getting a shape of a business at the end of a hackathon. And with this intent, we created this whole ecosystem where we would see where the theme is you walk in as an idea and you walk out as a fully funded business with operations running live and being a part of acceleration programs, being a part of investors, getting access to the influencers, the key opinion leaders of the blockchain ecosystem. With this intent, we have been honored, and we have been fortunate enough to be joined by esteemed mentors such as Mr. Sanjit Rao, and many other mentors who are the experts in their respective fields that have agreed to help the startups and mentor them to build their idea into a business. With this, you can go and apply to tde.fi/Bizthon, Bizthon. The link is down there in the description of this YouTube video. Also, you can check out the TDeFi website for more details, the Bizthon website for more details. The prize money is $1 million, and we have a very special reward for the one who would be referring us the winner project. So in case you feel that you might not want to participate, but you definitely have a project in your mind that can win the competition, then you, being the referrer, would get a chance to win a Lamborghini Huracan from TDeFi at GITEX. Right? So all of this is live. All of this is happening. As I say, we are receiving loads and loads of applications, and we would encourage all of you to participate and get, build your ideas into reality. Thank you so much for giving me the time to elaborate on this. I would now like to invite Mr. Sanjit for his introduction about himself and his work that he has been doing on blockchain.
Yeah, thank you, Rishabh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever time zones everyone has logged in. Well, I'm Sanjit, and I've been working with the banking industry very closely. I'm a fintech professional, and I'll try to keep it short. So my mantra is accelerating growth. So I help enterprises, banks to grow their business exponentially, to scale up their operations with the use of disruptive technology. So I've worked both in banks and IT sector. So in IT, I have managed projects implementing digital solutions and consulting with clients, offering them digital solutions, how to scale up their operations or grow their business. And in banking sector, I've started with branch banking. I worked in operations, in product, in strategy change management, and last, when I left Access, I was heading the digital trade finance, where I used blockchain profusely. When I say use blockchain profusely, I meant we have done a lot of POCs, but yeah, real transaction is yet to come, because trade finance itself is a very complex and niche area, and blockchain is again upcoming technology. So it will take some time to have a real world transaction. But yes, we were doing a lot of POCs, and I think it's just a matter of time when everybody collaborates and see a full live transaction. So that's about me. And Rishabh, you were asking, I think, a couple of more questions. If you can repeat that.
Yeah, sure. So that was a very fantastic introduction. It covered really quite a brief, very briefly about the work that you've been doing. So to begin with, Mr. Sanjit, how do you see? I mean, if you would like to explain, how can blockchain help trade finance to better itself?
Right. So I think before we enter into trade finance, which is a little complex domain, let me just cover finance in a in just a minute maybe. So and why blockchain is required in financial world. So basically, finance means what? A person or an entity or a corporate having some excess funds. Okay, they want to lend the funds so that they can uh, get some income out of it. And there's another entity, say B, say A wants to lend funds, and B is another entity who wants to borrow funds, or say for a year or for a month, and they want to use it and then give it back to the A. So A wants to lend funds, B wants to get the funds. But how will I'm sorry for that. So how will A and B will meet? I mean, so if it's within close relatives, then obviously there is a trust, and you can just A can give the funds to B. But in a real world situation, A might be in some other country, B might be in some other country, and the meeting point is through banks, because banks are the institutional where everybody trusts. So A gives the money to bank, and B takes the money from bank, and that is how the banks have emerged. Ultimately, it's A giving to B, but through bank. So now, blockchain. What can blockchain do here? So basically, as as I explained, it's a matter of trust, and we trust the bank. That's why both A and B goes to the bank. Now, if blockchain is owned by everybody, so there are number of A's, number of B's in the market, and if everybody owns that blockchain, then we don't need a bank, because they are the owners, and there is a trust inherent in it. And then A can directly lend to the B, saving completely the transaction cost, the operational cost of a bank, and the finance will be much cheaper and much more easily available. To be precise, in 20 I mean till 2016, there has been $16 trillion of global trade in the world. Out of that, almost 10%, so $1.6 trillion are not financed by any bank, because there's a gap. And there's a gap because the bank doesn't trust customer doesn't trust the bank, or there's not a credit history hasn't built up. So such a huge financing gap is there in this world till now. And if some technology comes which can solve this problem, then obviously it will be fantastic. So this is about the finance. Now I will come to trade finance a little later. Maybe if you have a couple of more questions, I can just uh, because you're
Okay.
asking about the
Yeah.
contestants, how can they participate, and I think
Yes.
there's a
So
question.
I mean, when you started the session by saying that although banks are working in the trade finance space using blockchain, if they are implementing blockchain, but the real transaction is yet to happen. It's more on the testing in the pilot phases that's happening, or
Right,
maybe the internal
right,
transactions are happening.
right.
So that means that there is a huge opportunity lying there. It's still unexplored. It's the market is actually untapped.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if our participants, or if there are people who have who would like to build an idea on this, I'm sure that there would be a lot of financial institutions that would come forward to support, not only support these ideas, invest in them, integrate with them, and have these real transactions happening in real time. I mean, what
Yes.
what are your comments on that?
Yeah, see, I think obviously I don't have a perfect number, but what I gathered from different sources, around 24,000 banks would be there in the entire world. Okay, 24,000. Okay, so So you can see how much opportunity is there of developing a platform, and when the market is like around 24,000. So it's a huge opportunity, and obviously it's a huge differentiator. So obviously there's a huge market, and there's a huge gap actually, and the need is there.
Right. So, I mean, this gap, when there is a gap, that means there's a huge opportunity, and that calls out for entrepreneurs. There was once a gap in the retail, in the supply chain market, and e-commerce came in, and now we know how what Flipkart is, what Amazon is, and what Myntra is. So, think when there is a gap, we should take it as an opportunity and start building on it. So,
Right.
guys, if you are listening to this, there's a hand raised. We'll take the questions a little later. I think there's a hand raised by Aurobindo. I think we'll definitely invite you and we'll take a question. But guys, if you are looking at this and listening to this session, and if you have any idea, let's say even a seed of an idea about implementing blockchain and trade finance, then I have the right person for you. I have the right mentor for you. Please reach out to him. Maybe his insights would help you in building that idea to a business, and probably you might be the first one to bring blockchain in trade finance and make the real transactions happen.
Yeah. So Rishabh, I think I can now touch upon trade finance a little bit. So
Yes.
what I touched upon uh, previously was just a financing. So in trade finance, what happens is a global trade, right? So suppose we take an example, as a seller in China is manufacturing some goods, and uh, he's sending it to USA using seaway, so using a ship. So the shipment happening from China to USA. Now it takes a lot of time, and the buyer in USA would pay the seller in China, so 60 days after the goods are received or after the documents are received. So there's a huge gap. So 60 days, the seller in China would want some finance because he has already released the goods, but he is not receiving the money till 60th day. So this is the gap where he approaches a bank and the bank finances this trade. So this 60-day gap cycle. So now what happens? There is a lot of players involved here, because the ship has to leave the Chinese port and has to reach USA. This is one. The goods have to be loaded, and then the documents, because the seller in China would raise an invoice, would collect an evidence of the shipment, and would give it to the bank in China. This gets couriered from the bank in China to bank in USA, and then this gets to the buyer in USA so that he can release the goods. And now the buyer in USA has to pay to the bank in USA, which again transfers the money to bank in China, which again gives it to the seller. So this whole cycle, you can understand such a complex ecosystem. Documents flowing, goods flowing, and then the funds flowing, okay, from three different directions. And there are agents, there are insurance company, there are freight forwarders, and anywhere any delay happens or a glitch happens, everything goes for a toss, because even 1 day wait or in the warehouse of the shipping company is a huge cost, okay, for the buyer. So all these things is complex thing where the paper movement happens, and the original paper has to reach, otherwise how will the buyer release the goods from the shipment? So if this can be put on a blockchain, and actually people are trying to put this on a blockchain whereby this whole transaction, the movement of documents, the movement of funds happen electronically, thereby you squeeze the time of 20-30 days into 1 hour, and you are very transparent because you can see where the ship is, when the goods are going, and everything can be made it much more transparent, accurate. Obviously this will cut down the operational cost of a bank by I think around 60 to 80%. That's what we estimated in one of the sessions. And then definitely is a huge cost saving, and everybody can go paperless. That is completely digital. So complete green initiative, and everybody is now trying to become net carbon zero. That's the target. So definitely that will help there, and huge opportunity here because no one is ready yet.
Okay, great. So that's how the problems of the delay in this whole transaction cycle can be solved by blockchain. When
Right.
these so the whole cycle itself of trade finance is around, let's say, 60 days or X amount. and this because of the documentation that's happening and the transfer of papers that happening. And this, if we bring in blockchain and the speed of transaction that bring comes in with along with it, the whole data circulation happens. That would improvise. That brings me to a very important question. Uh, up, okay, so if speed is the only concern, then I think centralized we do have a lot of centralized technologies that can solve this problem. Then apart from speed, what do you think transparency is a very important concern in trade finance?
Exactly. Uh, Speed, trust, transparency. Okay. Because of because there's no trust between the seller in China and the buyer in USA, they are involving so many parties, right? The banks. And if a dispute happens, then it goes to international court, which is very expensive. So again, the cost of trust is enormous. The speed is what we require. We need agility and the trust we need. And I mean all these factors put together and the authenticity, sovereignty of the transaction, everything needs to be recorded on a immutable platform. Okay, today it's the original paper which goes, which cannot be, which cannot be forged, or which if forged can be detected. But now, if we want to make it digital, it has to be completely, immutable.
Right. So that is why blockchain is essential, so that the trust factor that is creating opportunities for multiple intermediaries can be eliminated. So it's not just speed, because speed, realistically speaking, speed can be actually reduced by a lot of centralized technologies. And then why do we need only blockchain? Why to make it complicated? If we have to make it a little blockchainized because of the trust factor that's there, and to remove all these intermediaries. That's uh, that's about how we can implement trade blockchain in trade finance. When I'm sure that trade finance, if you talk about blockchain real applications, then the first one was cryptocurrencies, the one we know of, right? From the last 10, 11 years or the decade, we have seen cryptocurrencies evolve through time. We saw fintech, then we saw blockchain infrastructure, then we saw DeFi, lending and borrowing happening, and then the non-fungible token. So all of this has more is more related to the financial markets, right? Capital markets. Other than capital markets, or how do you see the evolution, or let's say, what are the areas of applications of blockchain in finance? Or maybe I'll put it in a different question to make it easier for the audience. Which areas of finance should our participants look at to implement blockchain and improve the processes?
So actually, as you rightly mentioned, NFTs or cryptos, uh, yeah, cryptos are there in a big way, but unless until they're recognized by central governments, it again stays out of the main loop, right? Only I think in 2010, I believe, two pizzas were bought for 10,000 BTC, but after that, we don't see that many real world transactions. I think only a couple of days before, El Salvador, I think, have um, you know uh, has done a transaction where somebody bought from McDonald's some Big Mac, paying in Bitcoin. So unless and until this virtual world and this real world currency match, okay, the fiat currency and the cryptocurrency are interconvertible, at every moment. So this is still a little bit, away from the real world. But in the trade finance, or as you mentioned, in the financing world, there are a lot of cases which people can use. First is that payments, instead of routing through bank, if there's a peer-to-peer payment, okay, which can eliminate geographies, which can eliminate the currency fluctuation, okay, because today if say somebody in India has to send dollars in USA, there is a currency conversion on every day, and every day is a new day because the money would change, the value would change. So if you can somehow bring in blockchain there, where this P2P, peer-to-peer, without the bank, the transaction happens through a common currency, which can be digital currency. That is one of the use case. Then cross-country, uh, this can be domestic, this can be cross-country to eliminate the fluctuation. Then whenever this in trade, whenever this seller raises an invoice and it goes to the bank for financing, the bank cannot determine whether it's original, duplicate, or fake or not, because it is just an invoice. So anybody can raise an invoice. They can go to two different banks, get double financed. So there is an a chance of fraud, which again can be eliminated if this some authentic technology is used, which is common to both banks and the sellers across the world. So everybody can have that transparency. This is the third use case. Then insurance. So basically, blockchain can be used anywhere where there's a trust required, the lack of trust. If you see the insurance company, if you want to buy a policy, insurance company will ask you certain questions, will ask you to go through medical test and all that, because they don't trust you, right? They need all this evidence. So if all these medical records can be put on a platform where the insurance company can directly access, obviously then they don't need it from you. Similarly, if suppose a claim comes, be it a death of an individual or accident, again insurance company goes and asks for so much of evidence because they don't trust the policyholder. If such records are there on some platform which is immutable, obviously it can be in split seconds the policyholder will get the insurance without even claiming it. Okay, so all this has to be interconnected, and then the use case can be really functional. This is another use case which I said, insurance payout. Then as I say, for lending we need to go to banks. If there's a peer-to-peer where the actual match happens and a person with excess funds can lend it to the person who wants to borrow money, again one more use case. Other use case which I can think of, sorry, I'm just bombarding with a lot of use cases. The real estate. Okay, real estate today is such a what to say, unstructured market. The registration of a property, the mortgage needs, the financing by a bank, it takes long time. Okay, those who have bought house, they know that how much time does it take, and how many papers do you require to give it to the bank. Whereas if everything can be put on a uh, blockchain sort of platform where everything authenticated, it will just happen in a fraction of seconds or maybe in some minutes. So the real estate, right from the registration of property to mortgage, financing, everything can be put on such platform. So this is a huge opportunity. I mean, we all know that how many houses are sold every day, and how many people are buying it. So a huge opportunity. So these are the 6-7 use cases which I can think of. If you want more, I can think and give it later. I have so many
Wow.
of them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjeev. It was such amazing because these ideas, actually are becoming the seeds of businesses for people who are listening to you. They would go back, think about this idea, and I'm sure there would be businesses coming out of just this session. That's amazing. I'm really thankful to you for sharing all of these insights and the use cases. You did mention about insurance, and here I would like to mention and give my 2 cents. uh, Earlier, because of smart contracts hacks or smart contracts risk, a lot of losses were incurred, and because of that, the trust in on the smart contracts became a problem for a lot of retail users or institution users. With this problem being coming up again and again, a lot of hacks happening again and again, there was a protocol that came up called as Nexus Mutual. So now Nexus Mutual provides insurance on smart contract, right? This is how ideas emerge. This is how problems are solved, right? Then fundraising is a concern for because you're connecting investors to the startups, and there are so many intermediaries. There are investment banks per se, and they take I'm not going to name the bank or the startup, but I recently read that in a recently concluded IPO for few thousand crores, investment bank made hundreds of crores in their fees, right? And this was all, obviously this is not money coming out of nowhere. This is business's money that they're getting. A business could have put that money into that business and made it more profitable, made it more achieve more milestones from that. And now with blockchain, there are launch pads, there are platforms like Goldfinger that are that are investment clubs that are bringing all of this on blockchain. So now, as a platform, you don't need to have any investment bank, so-called, to do the dealings for you. You would be a technology would be identifying the right deals for you as an investor, and as a startup, technology would be finding the right investors for you, and
Yeah.
the deals will be happening on a smart contract. So there is no chance of losing the money. There is no chance of trusting anyone. It's just open, and it's a it's that of trustless solution. That's what blockchain is. So this was another, let's say use case that's happening as we talk today, and there is a lot of other implementations possible with this. I mean, that was about the other areas of finance where blockchain can be helpful. What would be your suggestion for entrepreneurs? I mean, entrepreneurship is might be glamorous, look glamorous from the social media, but being in that ecosystem, and I mean, you have been into this whole corporate ecosystem for a long time, and you would have met a lot of entrepreneurs, right? So, what are your suggestions for the entrepreneurs that are building solutions and are getting prepared for launching their next unicorns?
I think it's important to find the right, I mean, real world problem. So a lot of entrepreneurs may be jumping the gun, assuming some problem is there, but it's important to spend some time on the problem, meet with real world customers, understand their problems, and use design thinking. What I mean by design thinking is that a lot of time customers say what they need or what they feel, but that might not be the real problem. There might be some underlying problem beneath that. So the person has to probe, or has to ask a lot of questions. So right questions have to be asked to get to the real problem of the world. So if somebody identifies the real problem, then the journey would be easier, because it's easier to convince investors, it's easier to build up the business, so everybody would support you. But if the problem identified is wrong, or it's not that much important in the real world, then I think it's a difficult road ahead. And whatever marketing tools you use, whatever strategy you use, is difficult. So first is, I would say, identify a real world problem, spend maximum time there. So once that identification is clear, then build a foolproof solution, which again, with time, it has to improvise. So if these two things are done, then I think yeah, path might look glamorous, but yeah, it's difficult, obviously, very, very difficult indeed. But yes, anybody solving a real world problem would definitely would enjoy that, although it might be difficult, but the person or that team would enjoy, because they are solving a real case.
Very nice. Thank you so much. It's great insight. So, I mean, just adding on to what you have said, I think, and I said this in the last session as well. Entrepreneurship is a journey. Don't take it as a destination. There is no final destination that you have to achieve. It's a journey. Enjoy it. Enjoy the ups and downs. There would be good times. There would be bad times. There will be people appreciating you. There will be people criticizing you. Just enjoy it, be an observer, and keep working hard, keep putting efforts. And I mean, that's what we are here for, right? There is no one has told us that this is the destination. It's a journey. Let's enjoy that, right? And let's take entrepreneurship easy and as a journey. uh, Mr. Sanjit, such competitions, when you look at this ecosystem from in last 10 years, it has grown exponentially fast at an unparalleled pace. I don't know of a technology, or don't know of a industry that has emerged at such a large scale. How do you see, or what role do what I mean, what are your comments on such competitions such as these hackathons they play in evolution of such ecosystem? And in maybe your thoughts on how are they helpful, if they are, in your perspective, to the people who are trying to get into the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think hackathons play a major role. But I would think that what would be more impactful, that if we can get some corporates who are facing a real world problem, and then uh, take those problem and then address that. Maybe corporates can join, they can explain what problem they're facing, and then just leave it to the a team or the audience, so that they can actually solve the case and then come back to the corporate whether it fits in or not. So that would be a problem, ready problem, because there are a lot of problems in the real world. Okay, if you go around, a lot of problems which needs to be solved. Now, if you ask people to come out with problems, you'll get plenty of use cases. Now, maybe few might be solved with blockchain, might not be. That's a different case. Obviously, there should be an elimination, and then you put everybody into this hackathon solving those problems. So I think that would be, better, because it will from both sides, and that solution should be accepted by the entity who has given the problem. Otherwise, there is no. Otherwise, there is there is no end to it.
Okay. So, I mean, you rightly mentioned that hackathons, along with the expertise of the corporates who have already spent time in solving that problem through traditional technologies and know the nitty-gritties of that problem statement, they would be saving the time of these entrepreneurs by saving them from not going the wrong way and at least
Right.
not going the way they have already seen. So they would be eliminating the probabilities of failure and building more and getting you closer to the probabilities of success. Right.
Right.
And I think with this probably events such as TDeFi Bizthon, where we are inviting all of these corporates, such as like yourself, to work with the startups. I think I think you would say that this sort of an event or a structure where we are not where we are asking entrepreneurs to work with the corporates to build up solutions is something that should be looked out for.
Definitely, definitely. That's the way out. That's the way out. As I said, it has to be real world problem and not a fictitious problem. Then only it will work.
Great. Uh, Uh, would you like to mention some resources where our can participants can learn more about trade finance and they can implement blockchain in trade finance? I mean, anything that's on the top of your mind, probably some blogs that you have been reading to on the same topic, or some books that you would like to recommend?
Um, Books, there are many, but I think since last couple of years, I have not accessed books because of pandemic. Just everything on the net. Yeah, so like they can visit some sites like TradeLens. Okay, site of TradeLens. Then that's a Musk initiative. They wanted to digitize the trade finance. Then a site of Bolero, site of Contour. So I'm just taking the name of the corporates who are into this digitizing trade. So Contour, Bolero, TradeLens, ESS Docs. Okay. Then you can see Corda R3, what they have done. I mean, they are doing a lot of corporate. So these are all permission blockchains, right? These are not public blockchains. So Corda R3 is completely into this. Then you can go and visit sites of Monetago, Monetago. Um, this is what comes at top of my mind. And Marco Polo is another initiative, blockchain initiative, which is trying to digitize trade. Then so my these are few which comes on top of my mind. And yes, there are
Great.
hundreds and hundreds of such.
Yeah, I mean, please feel free to share them after the session as well,
Sure.
and we can share it out with our community to have a look at it. People who are listening to this, please find those details updated in the description after the session is over, and once we receive it from our guest today. I think with this we are moving towards the end of this discussion, and with a couple of questions out there. Let me see if we have. If there is anyone who would like to ask a question, please raise your hand or put your question in that Q&A box, and we'll take it up. Host, do we have any anyone who would like to ask any question? Okay, yeah, it has already been answered. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, we'll wait for another a minute. If anyone has any question, please raise your hand. Seems like they need some time to absorb because there were a lot of ideas flowing in, and it was really insightful. People would be even the earlier sessions, we had a lot of questions coming in after the session, so we were connecting them to our speakers. Probably we'll have to do that with
Right.
if time
But
allows for you.
but as I told you earlier, this is a very short time, because I generally conduct webinars and such sessions with engineering students, budding engineering students who wants to go into blockchain space. So it generally takes 1 hour, 1.5 hour workshop. So then after that, the questions start pouring in. So,
Yes, right,
so
right.
it's a very short session. Obviously, I can understand that.
Yeah, we'll have more follow-up sessions with people who would be, Rohan raised his hand. Let me invite him. Host, please allow Rohan to speak. Rohan, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening, Rohan. Please ask a question.
Yeah, am I audible? Yeah. Firstly, thank you, Mr. Sanjeet. Thank you for sharing, such wonderful insights on blockchain. And I have a couple of questions. So to begin with, Mr. Sanjeet, can you touch upon some changes which may be required in the regulatory and the legal framework which could help move international trade, particularly trade finance, on the blockchain? Because in the current context, there are a lot many, regulatory and legal challenges. So, what kind of changes would be required to address those? And my second question is. See, as we know that there is no technology which is 100% secure and safe. So, to what extent a blockchain is resilient from the cyber security attacks, and what happens if there is a cyber security attack on any network?
Right. I think wonderful questions, I would say, Rohit. The first is the regulatory and legal aspect. Uh, Definitely. So I didn't use the words in the technical words which like letter of credit, bank guarantee, and all that. So definitely it has to uh, globally accepted. This any transaction blockchain has to be globally accepted. For that, some work has to be done. There should be terms and condition in the letter of credit. Although there is EUCP, if you know, electronic version of UCP, which is standardized, it has to be adopted, and the change is required of at a country level. So each country has to accept this electronic bill of lading. If you are trying to digitize the bill of lading and make it electronic, then each country has to accept. Today not all countries accept it, and the laws and regulations around it is also not very clear. So if one country is accepting, another is not accepting, then again there is a half digital and half paperwork. So everybody has to come together, and there has to be some common say policy, okay, which would govern all the banks of all the countries to accept and to put these terms and conditions, so that in case of dispute this can be resolved. So that definitely there is a lot of work to be done at the regulatory part, and then obviously the reg tech, the regulatory technology will have to pitch in there. This is answer to your question number one. Question number two, I think you say the cyber attack. Then see, definitely nobody can assure that there would not be cyber attack. Okay, I mean, uh, uh, there has been a COVID attack, which is a viral. Nobody knew that it would come, and see, we are in the second year of it. So cyber attack is the one which will come. Okay, I'm not saying which can come, as in which will definitely come. So the next COVID would be in form of cyber only. That I can assure you. When I don't know, but it will come. So only thing, the safeguard is this is a permission blockchain. Okay, since it's a trade finance, so it's a closed blockchain within the periphery of some banks, corporates, or whatever however you define that. So definitely the chances are less uh, of such attack, and more security protocols has to be built. But it is like it is like always it's a game is on. So the attackers would be more smart. Then you have to make more smarter tools to pre- prevent the attack. So that goes on.
I would like to add here to what Mr. Sanjeev mentioned. And Rohin, that's by the way, both of them are brilliant questions. So really, congratulations to you to ask such brilliant questions and make this session even more insightful. But just to answer your second question, as it's I mean, inevitable. Cyber attacks would be has happened, but the single point of failure, the concept of a single point of failure where one point in the whole network and nodes was becoming the failure point, and because of which the whole system was collapsing. That has been eliminated to a huge extent by blockchain. Blockchain is, let's say, the Web 3.0 as has actually helped to eliminate those single point of failures. Now there are there are these ledger is, it's a DLT, it's a distributed ledger technology. So the data is distributed. Even today, recently there were hacks in the protocols, in the DeFi protocols, a $611 million hack. Although the hacker was cautious and generous enough to return all the money for a $2,500 prize, sorry, $25,000 prize, but there was a hack which happened. Now these hacks will happen, but if you look at the number of them, the probability of it, and the difficulty to conduct such a cyber attack on a blockchain system, it's a little it's it's much more than or the probability is much less than the centralized systems. That's what blockchain has done to us. That's what blockchain has given to us, because it has made things decentralized or distributed. And that's why just by hacking one system you will not be able to gain this access to the system. You'll have to attack multiple system at one point, which by the rule of probability is as very generic rule, it reduces the risk to a lot extent. I hope we were able to answer your question, Rohin. If not,
Yes.
please feel.
No, no. Thank you, Mr. Rishabh. Thank you, Mr. Sanjeet. Those were very detailed and insightful answers. So, lastly, if time permits, I just have one more question back of the mind.
Yeah,
If you permit, I may ask it.
yeah, please ask your question. We'll try to answer in a precise.
See, there is another technology which is also gaining popularity is the hash graph. So both blockchain and hash graph, they use the distributed ledger technology, and even cryptocurrencies are using both the technologies. But there is a lot of coverage in the media which says Hashgraph is more advanced and it's considered more faster and even secure than blockchain. So, in your thought, is it? Do you think that Hashgraph may replace the blockchain in future, maybe some years down the line?
If you're Mr. Sanjeev would like to take that question.
No, you can go ahead. I can add on to it.
Okay. Okay. If you are asking that whether it would be able to take up, I mean, honestly, the way the things have changed, I think there is a possibility, right? No one ever thought that blockchain would be able to take up the whole entire financial space. Never. The banks never in their dreams thought that their jobs would be at risk and stake. I mean, risk at on one day after this. 10 years before we were going through a financial crisis, the banks were coming in and we let's say identified them as too big to fail, right? And 10 years later, we are talking today how we can eliminate the functions of bank. Like, this is how time has changed and evolved. So to answer your question, it has a probability. Now, to answer your question about about Hashgraph, and one of its applications is into Hedera Hashgraph, where we don't have blocks like blockchain. It would need a little more detailed explanation. Obviously, with blocks, the processes are different. With Hedera Hashgraph, Hashgraph technology, the processes would be different, and it would need a little more time for me to explain you. But I would definitely like to get onto it. Please drop an email or just drop a text to our team, and we'll schedule a call with you. We'll definitely solve your doubts. We'll not let them remain in your mind. We'll help you solve it and get probably have a jamming session with you. But this place might not be the right let's say platform for that.
Yeah, so
Okay, sure, Rishabh. Yeah.
just to add on to what Rishabh said, you see, when 2009, I think the first paper on Bitcoin was released by Satoshi Nakamoto. So in 2021, we are still finding application in the real world. Okay, so you can understand the how long it takes for a technology to evolve and make an impact in real world. Although in future the time would get reduced. So any new technology will come and will replace the existing technology. We never thought in Web 1 that Web 3 would come. Now it has come. Now wave 4, wave 5, 6, 7, 10 to the power 10 will come, definitely. So otherwise we will not evolve, right? We will stay wherever we are. So it has to evolve, but yeah, it takes time. It doesn't happen in some minutes or a couple of years. So that's what I
Yeah.
would say.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev. Thank you, Mr. Rishabh. That was really insightful and a very well crafted presentation and a session. Really enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Rohan. With this, we come to our end of our session. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjeev. It was really a pleasure having you with us. We got a lot of insights, and especially the use cases, which were a direct takeaway for all our participants. Other than what insights you shared, they would really help us and our participants to essentially build their ideas on blockchain and present them in this TDeFi Bizthon. So, guys, if you are listening to this, if you are whenever you listen to this, please log into TDeFi/Bizthon, apply for it. If you don't have an idea, then join an idea. Then join the team that is already working on an idea, but be a part of a blockchain ecosystem. This ecosystem has evolved exponentially at an exponentially fast rate. And it is the right time to be in it, to join this and be a part of this evolution that's happening as we are talking today, as we see today. We are a very fortunate generation to see both sides of the world. We were at, let's say, personally, I have been fortunate enough to be at an age where I did see a mobile-less and a telephone-less home, and I'm also seeing Web 3.0. So this is just a dream come true, or let's say, something, a level of satisfaction has already been achieved. But we all are fortunate enough to be a part of this world where we have seen both sides. And I think there's a lot to evolve, there's a lot to discuss. Thank you so much, everyone. Mr. Sanjeev, if you have any closing remarks, the stage is all yours.
Yeah, I would like to thank Rishabh and his team, the whole TDeFi. I mean, they have been, you guys have organized this quite well. I mean, it has been a month or so. We have been mailing each other, and you have got the right builder, right team. And I think these platforms we need now more to actually build cross-functional teams where everybody comes together. Because unless until everybody comes together, an idea will not see the day of light. It will only remain here. That's what I believe. And thanks everything. I mean, thanks everyone at TDeFi to organize this. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjeev. We look forward to more sessions.